one of the things that I actually made a good decision on in the earliest draft was writing the novel from third person limited in the present tense, because Jung as a character, as a person, he's an individual who misunderstands a lot of things. He's very myopic, and he wants to misunderstand, sometimes very willfully, based on his own past history with his family. So choosing present tense and that third limited was a way for, I think, readers to be along for the ride with him and to be discovering and rediscovering and forced to re-examine things as he is in that moment, which I think helped build some of the tension of the novel.
Because my novel was sort of based originally, I mean, I had a few different ideas, but they were all kind of static or just sort of, and separate. And I had to figure out how would this be a plot and how would this even be readable? And so I started realizing that if something is always sort of on the point of toppling, it makes it interesting. And it's not just like, the whole structure of the novel should feel like, from the beginning, like something's on the point of tipping over, but even down to the paragraph level and even down to the sentence level. So then I just started making sure that in every sentence, or in trying to make sure that there was just something even in a sentence that was going to be slightly unresolved and was going to, like a domino thing, was going to topple into the next sentence. And that seemed to help.
Suspense is such a driving force, not just for the reader, but mostly for the writer. I think I agree with all of you that when we were talking about outlining, I was thinking, okay, if you already know what's going to happen in the story, why would you write it? What's the point of writing something whose outcome you already know? I think part of the joy is being lost in the process and try to find those answers, or at least try to find something you don't know about the characters or about yourself. And probably you don't discover anything new, but probably you get to see something in a different way. And that for me is rewarding enough. And as I go along, I'm discovering what's going on with the characters, and yeah, I usually surprise myself at some of these plot twists. And it's very rewarding, but I also like to play a little bit with that, with the expectations of the reader, and say, this is not what the story is about. It's about something else.
Your own suspense and maintaining your own sense of suspense as you're writing something. I started writing this book in large part to answer a question that I didn't know how to resolve. Which was, what happens if a really random violent act happens to a family that has a long history of violence themselves? That was the question that I was always thinking about as I was writing, never knowing what the answer was. The act of writing the book was a way of coming to an answer, but I didn't know how it ended until it ended. So that was the thing that kept me engaged. And really sort of energized despite the darkness of the novel for those 3.5 years that I was writing it.
You actually do know, this happens a lot with me with stories, where I actually do know what the ending is, or I have a feeling of what the ending is. I just don't know how the character gets from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And so it's the kind of the suspense of figuring out, well, how can the story end that way? Or in this sort of general territory.